Okay, welcome everybody. This is our second or third webinar already. This time it's a webinar on blockchain and legislation, and I'm delighted to have Benjamin Niemeyer next to me.
Thank you.
Benjamin, let's start with a short introduction. Who are you?
Well, thank you, Herman. Well, my name is Benjamin Niemeyer. I work for LGGA. It's a local law firm in the Netherlands. We have approximately 60 lawyers, and we actually got involved into this tokenization business in 2017, I think.
I think it was 17, yeah.
In which we actually came up with some new ideas on getting assets on the blockchain, and that was I think when we also introduced that with Bilex.
Yeah, I think I came to you actually that time saying I've got a challenge.
A challenge accepted.
A challenge accepted. So actually we did we tokenized Bilex first time. I think we were the first in Europe, as a matter of fact. Yes. Yeah, I guess it worked quite well. Yeah, anyway, my name is, by the way, Herman Vissia. I'm the CEO of Liqwith. So, and I'm also the CEO of Bilex, and Bilex is, let's say, the mother company of Liqwith. And yeah, Bilex was actually tokenized first, and well, we will going to briefly discuss it in the if we talk about the current legislative landscape for tokenization in Holland. But I want to start with just a thing like the difference between regular crypto tokens and equity tokens, because I guess, and I think you will agree with me, that what we've experienced in 2017 when we had the ICOs, the initial coin offerings, where, yeah, I always say you bought a shower coin for the camping that wasn't open yet. Yeah. And a lot of people lost, well, let's say a lot of money. At that time, I can't even recollect the fact that you could pay in dollars or euros for those ICOs. It was all in Ethereum at that time. Yeah. And most people who participated didn't pay that much for that Ethereum, but then the price of Ethereum went up, and everybody said, "Oh, look at me! I just, got 5 million in, and 10 million in, and 20 million in, and 200 million in
for nothing."
Yeah, and then there was just a white paper and some
ideas,
and some ideas. And as we can see now, we're like six years forward. I guess all the regulators are now waking up and say, "Hey, those were actually not really utility coins, but they were actually equity coins." And let's see what we can do about that. But anyway, to just discuss this difference, I think we created a small video, and I think it's good that we first watch this video so everybody's got like an idea of what we're talking about and what the difference is. Let's go and watch the video.
Maybe you have heard of tokenization of assets, but do you know what it really is? Do you know how tokenized assets compares to cryptocurrencies? Can you tell the difference? All these questions and many more will be answered in this short video. Let's start with the fact that asset tokenization is not directly related to the cryptocurrency market. Many people confuse tokenized assets with cryptocurrencies. This is, of course, totally false. What is really being used when tokenizing assets is distributing ledger technology, DLT, or blockchain technology. It is thanks to this technology and the technology of smart contracts that the concept of asset tokenization has become possible. Another profound difference is the fact that tokenization is the ability to display a real asset on the blockchain. Real, not virtual. The value of a tokenized asset cannot be less than its real value. For example, art tokens of a valuable painting will not be cheaper than the painting itself. It is actually rather the opposite. Due to the fractional ownership of such a painting and the promise of free secondary trading, the total value of the tokenized painting can increase by 10 to 25%. Cryptocurrency creation is often perceived as a technical process that just needs to be implemented. With tokenized asset creation, however, we also have to implement legal and operational processes. The issuer cannot just create a token on the blockchain and imagine that this is a tokenized business. The complex process of legal justification and linking an asset to a smart contract is an integral part of the legalization of tokens. Without this legal binding, tokenization is just a scam. The last and perhaps most complex part of the process is the initial sale of a tokenized asset. Securities specialists are well aware of the regulations and restrictions that are introduced by regulators to protect investors in their respective countries. However, investors who have dealt exclusively with cryptocurrencies are not aware of these regulations and somehow think that those rules do not apply to them. That is why we at Liqwith believe in tokenization of assets and not in inflating crypto bubbles, which are backed solely by the assurances of the project's founders, many of which are not even able to pass a simple KYC, let alone be responsible for the funds of their investors. The 2022 bankruptcy of a series of crypto lenders and exchanges demonstrated not just a negligent attitude towards finance, but rather the complete absence of any kind of decent management or understanding of existing rules and regulations. Without being fortune tellers, one can notice a clear trend towards the formation of regulatory rules for the cryptocurrency market. Understanding all these factors, Liqwith continues to develop products and services directly related to compliant tokenization and the legal circulation of digital assets. We are pioneers in the industry, and we are happy to share our knowledge with you. Want to know more? Visit us at www.liqwith.io or drop us an email via welcome@liqwith.io. Liqwith, your innovator in finance.
Oké, nou, daar zijn we weer.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. There we are. Yeah, Benjamin, I think one of the most important things, you and I, we get a lot of questions about tokenization and about equity tokenization,
Yeah.
but what are we talking about? I mean, that's the main question. What is it?
I think the starting point most of the time is actually exactly naming the animal by its own name.
Yeah.
And giving it a name, because if you say if it's a crypto token or it's an NFT, what are you actually pointing at?
Yeah.
Is it non-fungible because there's only one object, but maybe it's also asset-backed NFT,
Yeah.
which would also make a difference in regulation, and that goes for equity or music rights. Or what is it backed up with, and what is actually the item that you register on the blockchain? Because that's a token, and adjacent to that token is most of the time either a commercial engagement or a real asset. And as we did with Bilex, we actually took the real shares or the depository receipts of that company, and we actually mirrored that and created the token as the certificate that's real and tradable, and making it the transition and the transaction fully digital on the blockchain. And I think that's the main position for the blockchain to go forward, that this application actually becomes functional, and it's not just another addition, which is more difficult for implementation, but that's actually also practical and creates a real solution for a real life problem.
Yeah. I mean, I know why. As a matter of fact, it took me 6 months into the project at that time in 2017, and then I had my eureka moment, and that eureka moment was, why are we doing this? What problem are we solving? I mean, that is basically the main question that we have to ask ourselves. And then I know I was with with one of the founders of your company, Mr. Woplacho there, And we were both so excited that we actually had cracked the code, so to say, and say, look, it has nothing to do with whether it's a fungible token or whatever, or whether it's on the blockchain. The thing that we do is we do something that we have always been doing. We are issuing shares, and whether they are a certificate of shares, depository receipts. Anyway, it's a share of a venture of a company.
Yeah, exactly.
And the people who receive it will have, they can have voting rights and they can have dividend rights.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, but why do we do it on the blockchain? And then we said, hey, but there's actually only 2 reasons why you do that. And it makes transactions exponentially faster and exponentially cheaper. And the fact that it's cheap, it's because it's everybody can see it. Everybody can the whole administration is there.
Yeah.
You can't manipulate it. Once you've done a transaction, it's done.
Yeah.
You can't reverse it anymore.
No, it's mined and it's in the blockchain.
It's in a block. It's there.
Yeah.
And it means that it's very difficult to, well, you can't lose any coins or you can't lose any certificates. You always know where they are because you know in which wallets they are. You can say, okay, I need to know who's the owner of the wallet, and that's something that you need to know when it's about equity. And
you can do it for very small amounts because the costs are so super low.
Yeah, the costs are ridiculously low. If you at the moment at Liqwith, for example, we support any basically any blockchain, EVM and powered blockchain. But if we look at Fuse, for example, that's the preferred blockchain that we want to use. Transaction costs are like, I don't know, I think we do 100,000 transactions for $1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Which gives us the opportunity, for example, to even pay for all the transactions for any transaction that is happening with the tokens that are issued on our platform. And that makes it even more simple.
I think that's the power, the simplicity of creating a complex situation and providing it with a very simple solution, making it actually as simple as a paperclip. That's what I always said. If you see it, it's easy. Yeah, it's so easy that people don't even believe it sometimes. Yeah, they said, okay, but now I've received those tokens. You've given me a wallet. I received those tokens, so now I'm a shareholder. Yes, I'm a shareholder, but where's the paper? Yeah. They want something physical. Yeah. Otherwise, they don't believe that they are an owner of something. I mean, it's a psychology thing almost sometimes. It is. And anyway, we will see, our next topic is actually, we can go there right now, which is the current landscape in Holland, Europe, and the rest of the world. Because we get a lot of questions from people outside of Europe, but also within Europe, outside of Holland. And they all said, yes, we are thinking about tokenizing our company. We want to do an offering so people can easily receive shares. Yeah. And then, what do you say if they come to you with that question? Let's say they are from Spain, for example. Yeah. Well, I think the Netherlands in particular has a very well-established environment for incorporation of companies and also establishment of companies and doing business. It's a very trustworthy environment. And that's why the Netherlands is also very attractive for foreign companies actually to do business in the Netherlands and to have their own company within the Netherlands itself. It's not only for yourself, but it's also for your customers and your clients and your suppliers that actually have faith in doing business in the Netherlands because we've just organized it pretty tight.
Yeah, I always say that we've actually invented it.
Eventually, we can go back.
1602 it was, I guess.
With the VOC, yes. Yeah. Well, that's a very big. We have a very, very long heritage in the Netherlands of doing business, and the Netherlands is originally a trading nation, which is much more flexible than if you look to Germany, which is much more an industry nation. Everything is more formalized. In the Netherlands, everything is pretty well organized, but not also formalistic. So I think that's one of the main advantages that you have. Next is tax-wise, there's not a lot of difference between Luxembourg and the Netherlands actually anymore. So the reason for moving your corporate seat to the Netherlands or to another country is actually limited. So that's pretty much neutral. Then if you look into the crypto landscape and the legislation in the Netherlands, it's also quite well organized. I think from the basic beginning in 2017, there was absolutely no regulation. And now we're having additional regulation imposed. But on the original ideas of security assets being tokenized or being issued via the blockchain or just in regular form, there's actually already a very long establishment on doing that. So, and that was also one of those inventions that we did in 2017, saying, you know, we use what we already know and what we already have on tokenization, on issuing shares for tokenization. And that's actually pretty much how the Netherlands is structured in that sense. And compared to the rest of the world, that actually gives you quite advantage that it's really flexible in that sense. And then we have a discussion with Crypto Valley and Souk saying, you know, you're overregulated. And yeah, but sometimes people like that, apparently, because they then have surety. But in our system, actually, the surety is already given because it's all compliancy law. It's all compliancy, doing it yourself, looking at the legislation. And there's a lot of people that don't know that the legislation is already there and can be used in your benefit without even having to apply for a license in many occasions. Yeah,
I mean, that's, if I look at what we've done so far and the companies we've helped, there was no need for a license.
No.
There was a need for a
definition.
For a definition, there was a need of knowing if this is what you are allowed to do. You have to inform the regulator that you're doing it. That's all. There's no license required. There's an information obligation. That's it. Also, what I've found is that any asset, actually, you can harness that in a company structure. And then sell the shares of that company. And that means that no matter what you, of course, it depends on what you're selling, I guess. I mean, real estate has, you can do it, but there is tax implications when you putting real estate in a company. And there is some difference that they can say, oh, you're really an investment fund. I guess that is something that's always depending on a case by case basis. I mean,
exactly.
Everybody, it's like everybody's looking for this golden bullet kind of thing, you know. And we say, look, put it in a venture, you know, in a Dutch limited company. Make sure via that limited company that you can issue depository receipts. The reason for that is well, that's what I saw, is that you are yourself able to issue those depository receipts, so you don't need a notary. What, in a sense, is basically the big difference between all other countries in Europe, not one excluded. It was quite surprising for me that time to see that only we in the Netherlands have this option.
This flexibility is provided that you can actually transfer these depository receipts quite easily.
Without having a notary drafting.
I think that's essential for doing the transactions on the blockchain, that it's actually automated and that it gives all the investors that are involved the surety that they actually get their ownership registered, and they can also invoke their rights as a shareholder. It's similar.
But what I see because it's nice for the Netherlands, of course. We're lucky, that we have that. But if we look at, how the world is changing, basically, I mean, we see that getting funds from banks, it becomes more and more difficult. Yeah. Banks are very reluctant in investing in let's say, risk ventures. Yeah. And, they can
SMEs are just, there's no go. They don't want to invest in SMEs, in small
no, that's totally, I mean, it's well, from a personal point of view, I think it's the most stupid decision that you can make. But anyway, people need to find alternative ways of financing. Yeah, your company. And I think that we can say, oh, in Holland we've actually solved it somehow. Mm-hmm. But I think there is another way, which is without knowing all the legislation in various countries. We've looked into it. It was the co-op. Yeah. And can you elaborate a little bit about co-op?
Well, I think the co-op was originated from the cooperation between multiple partners within a society. Mm-hmm. And from that perspective, it's more or less like a society that comes together and does business. Mm-hmm. And then and it also is a flexible way of doing business. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, originates from way beyond and from the agricultural ventures that are most of the time organized in a corporation. Mm-hmm. And this corporation also gives you the flexibility, instead of a limited liability company where you have a shareholder and you have a director, that you actually have a society in which you do business, and all these society members actually can participate and have rights on profits, rights on voting, and that can also be organized and transplanted to mm-hmm. the blockchain.
Yeah, because what I found was that co-ops are very old. I mean, there are co-ops like, I think there were co-ops 400 or 500 years ago already. Yeah. And what is interesting is that because that was so early, that the legislation around co-ops is quite homogeneous in Europe, because at that time we were not split up in the countries that we have right now. So all those countries that are now have basically the same legislation around co-ops. And one of the most important ones is that when you become a member of the co-op, you can have like shares in the co-op mm-hmm. or something like that, and you don't need a notary to issue those shares.
Exactly. I think that's essential. That and what you want to avoid, of course, is that you are waiting for administration with a notary, identification, and then processing all the documents that need to be processed. So you're again 3 months away for getting a little bit of money into your corporation, and that would be really detrimental to the effect of actually having traction in your company or in your corporation. And I think that's key, that it goes quite fast. So you actually can move forward with small,
exponentially faster, exponentially cheaper. There
exactly.
We go again.
That's the key word.
And
those are the key words.
So when people ask me, I always say, please look into the co-op possibility if you're outside Holland, because that's your biggest chance. And for some people, it's very weird to say, oh, but the co-op, I am not a farmer. Mm-hmm. But that has nothing to do with farming. It was just that it was used and still is used in farming a lot. Yeah, because that's where you really need to cooperate, to buy machines together and to have a plant together to process your
I also see it coming up in the sense that a lot of digital autonomous organizations are actually going to be founded as a corporation.
Yeah. That's again the DAOs. Yeah. Oh, we set up a DAO, but you need a legal structure. You need a
exactly
you
need an entity to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like so. And then the co-op probably is a very good solution for that.
It is. I think the best way forward. But it comes down every time, Herman, to a case-by-case analysis, saying what is the best solution. But I think there are multiple solutions for a lot of customers or people that are looking for setting up their company, raising equity.
But I'm sure a lot of viewers who watch this webinar, they say, yeah, okay, but you know, we participate in this webinar because we are a little bit afraid that it's quite costly to have this advice. So if I come to you, let's say as I have an idea, I have assets or something like that. How do I approach that? How does that work with, for example, your company?
Yeah, so I think the best way forward in most cases is actually starting from scratch. If you want to rebuild something that you already have and you want to remodel that, it's just going to cost you a lot of legal fees. It's going to ask for further tax analysis. What are the effects if you're going to change it? But if you just start from nothing, it's actually quite fast and quite cheap, because what you would do is actually establish a company or a corporation, which is not that expensive.
No.
You would set up the documentation, which is already done many times before, and then you actually already have a starting position in saying the legal structure is there. Now the organization needs to be built. So what from our perspective, most of the time, legal is following the operation. It's not the other way around. It's not like you first decide that you want to do the structure legally like this, and then you're going to attach the organization to it. No, it's first have the idea, have the business case ready, and then we will think of something to make it work. Because that's, I think, instrumental. Legal and compliance is just something that should enable you to do the business, and not something to build your business towards.
No. And what I found also is quite remarkable that any citizen in Europe can start a limited company in Holland. Yeah. Actually, when they already have a company in another country, I had experience with a company in Spain. It was situated in Barcelona. What they did, they just transferred all the shares of that company to this limited company in the Netherlands. They tokenized that company, and then they said, that company holds the asset of that company in Spain. Yeah. And suddenly, they had tokenized,
a Spanish company.
A Spanish company. It's innovative, to say the least. Yeah. There are still some, let's say, things that you have to take into consideration. That it's quite difficult to collect money in Spain with under Dutch legislation. You have to check your Spanish legislation about that, but in general, it's possible. Yeah. And but people are a little bit afraid of doing that. I mean, they're afraid of how that legally works. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's more like we need examples that it works than, because it really works. There is everybody's waiting for MiCA, for example, which is basically.
Okay, that's a nice step forward.
It's because it's exactly.
But we couldn't be very fast about MiCA, right? I mean, equity tokens. What is the effect on equity tokens with MiCA? Zero. Because all the legislation is already there.
So there is no real new.
No.
I would say.
That's a fast conversation, right? Maybe there's much to say about it.
Let's because if you go to MiCA, MiCA is now 1,000 pages, I guess. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. If you read it, if you want to get demotivated, read MiCA.
Well, first start with MiCA and then start to read the TFR, and then you really stop your business.
Yeah. Then you just say, look, I'm just going to work for a boss, and please. But in essence, what I've learned after all those years was they want you to do KYC. That means if you issue equity, to whom, and do you know who he is?
Yeah.
So a proper KYC structure is needed.
Yeah.
Simple.
But we already knew that from the AML directives.
There is nothing new there.
No.
Then they're really worried about money laundering. Yeah. So what you need to do is not only knowing who the holder of your equity is, or who you issue tokens to, but you must have some idea where he gets his money, or he or she gets his money from.
Source of wealth is just essential.
Source of wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have the right terminology for that. The source of wealth. Again, basically you can only ask. If people tell you, say, look, I've asked, they've said, yeah, I've got I don't know, salary or something else. You can say, upload some documents that states that. You can't even verify. That's weird, by the way, but you have to trust them that it's correct, because there is no way that you can like verify whether that is correct, because you are not the police. Yeah, that's something the police only can do. But again, you have to say, I've done my best, so I know the source of wealth. And the last one, that one is a little bit tricky, especially if you look at the war in Ukraine right now, which is the avoidance of terrorist financing.
Yeah.
Or sanction list monitoring with again, we have a solution for that, because we have an API that we check every customer every night against the most current sanction lists from Europe, from the United Nations, from America, to make sure that you are not selling your equity to somebody who is financing terrorism, who's not laundering money, and that he says that he is who he says he is.
Yeah, I think in I don't know in practice, but the amount of money, if once that engages and it becomes a significant amount, of course the checks go much further and much deeper. Yeah. But for the smaller amount, we're not so much worried. I mean, in practice, you actually look at the risk profile of a transaction, and you say, if this is already in place, and I think Liqwith already implemented that in all the systems, long before MiCAR actually came on paper. And we still don't know when it's going to be active or how it's going to be implemented in the Netherlands exactly. but we know that for the main objectives, there's already enough compliancy going on. And I think that's the most important thing. And then there was always a discussion on, what are we going to do with asset reference tokens? What are we going to do with stable coins? Well, I think there's a positive side on MiCAR as well, that we actually get a little bit more guidance, that we have a white paper that needs to be published. Exactly. But on the other hand, it also feels sometimes like we miss something, because that is already standard practice. It's like, I always take the example for the fact that we had this return policy in the electronic e-commerce directive of 14 days. It used to be a month with Wacomp and with all these Telcel companies, and then they thought, oh, it's 14 days, so we can limit our rights. So actually, thank you, European Union. You just screwed over the European consumer by making legislation for the whole of Europe. Well, the practice was already there. It's but that's a little bit my feeling with MiCAR, that it's walking behind already the evolution of crypto. Yeah, and I think the stablecoin discussion, which is also a big part of MiCAR. Yeah. And don't forget, if you, for example, you have equity, you equity tokens issued, and you want to issue dividend. You want to issue dividend in a stable coin, preferably, because if you want to issue it in, let's say, normal euros via the normal digital banking system,
you immediately have a lot of problems, because not only you have the wallet address where the shares are,
Yeah.
but now you need their bank account.
Yeah.
And you need to know, then you have to have an all different process of issuing. And let's say you have 2,000 shareholders, which is possible.
Yeah.
2,000 people who hold your depository receipts. And let's say you do dividend, and you say, look, this year we have 25 euros of dividend. If you're going to pay 25 euros to 2,000 people via the normal payment rails, it's horrible.
You can just, that doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense at all. So we need some kind of a stable coin.
Yeah.
But again, it's very difficult to know exactly what is a stable coin.
Well, when is it a stable coin?
And when is it?
When is it e-money?
When is it e-money? Because we've done e-money. Yeah, I mean, and we know there is a very good exemption rules on e-money.
That also is.
So actually you can issue e-money.
Yeah.
In Holland, up to 5 million, I guess, without a license, just a registration at not the AFM, the Authority of Financial Markets, but in this case it is the Dutch National Bank, I guess. But again, it's just you have to do nothing. It's just you say you have to inform them that you do it, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, and there are of course some more troubling aspects of MiCAR, right? I mean, the fact that you already have the AML5 directive and implementing on exchanges and custodians doing trading cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
There's another impact for those companies, right? I mean, then suddenly there's a European license required.
Yeah.
Addition to this registration, and it's not even a license. I mean, they've treated it as a license, but it's just a registration. I think that
it was a gold-plated registration, they call it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but those are the kind of complications that it's like a double registration and double licensing system towards AML and this MiCAR will. Well, it's not going to replace that, but it's just going to be adjacent to it, which makes it difficult. I mean, how you're going to comply with both in that sense.
For us, it's difficult, but I think for customers of Liqwith, for example, who say, I want to tokenize.
No, they will not have any issue with that.
I think
and that's actually coming back to the discussion. Is MiCAR going to affect the equity tokens that you currently support with Liqwith? Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. It's just Liqwith as a provider of that service that they have to comply, and that's basically saying, yes, our customers, our software that we deliver, our solution that we deliver, complies with the needs that are stipulated in MiCAR. And those are, again, KYC, AML, sanction, and of course, again, depending on what are you selling, how big it will be, are there any capital restrictions or something like that?
Exactly.
I mean, those are all details, but let's say for 80%, I would say 80% SME requirements, it's absolutely no problem.
Exactly.
I mean, then forget about MiCAR. Just go. You have to have a supplier who complies with MiCAR. I think that's very important.
I think that's essential.
That's
for all the
and that's
getting well positioned as a company.
Exactly. And most people forget that they think, oh, MiCAR is coming, and now we want to do something with tokenization of our company or assets, and now we need to comply with MiCAR. No, you have to find a supplier like Liqwith who complies with MiCAR. I guess that's
I think that's
the biggest takeaway.
That's the biggest takeaway, I think, for today as well.
Yeah. So let's move on to point 5. What will be the future? What will the future hold for tokenized assets from a legal perspective.
Well, you already put the glass bowl here.
There it is.
So let's
really watch it.
Let's look deeply into that. I think from a legal perspective, I think the opportunities and the solutions are going to increase once there's also an economic need for that. And you can see that immediately that economic need, for example, comes to existence once there's an energy crisis, because suddenly it becomes very relevant to create an energy token.
Yeah, but also I think it becomes very relevant to create a co-op where you together put solar cells on your roof, or build a windmill, or distribute your electricity.
I was paying €1 for 1 kilowatt hour in November.
Oh my God! Yeah.
I mean, and then suddenly it becomes really relevant what you're doing, and I think blockchain is going to be very essential and how we're going to structure our economy eventually. And thus also with sharing assets. I mean, why is that building only owned by one owner? Why not by 200 or 2,000?
Yeah.
And why is that sheep owned by 5 people? But I mean, you can go on and on about it, but it really becomes relevant in times like our economic recessions that suddenly more inventorship actually comes aware and comes alive in that situation. So I think from a legal perspective, legal always follows what is happening.
Well, I see
in practice.
If I look at the requests that we get, sometimes they are really, really beautiful examples, like a fishing farm in the Caribbean it's a circular economy. It's on an island. The food is very expensive because everything has to be imported, especially fresh vegetables. And they say, well, we grow fish and we grow vegetables, and it's like a circular thing. And suddenly, but why not make everybody the owner?
Yeah.
Because then it becomes very easy. Then the food stays cheap. Everybody is involved. I mean, nobody wants that company goes bankrupt because it's your food, it's your energy, it's your wastewater treatment, it's your freshwater treatment.
I mean, there becomes an incentive to actually partake and participate in that program instead of just sitting back and doing nothing and waiting for for fish to come on the table.
Exactly. I mean, and it means that the decentralization of ownership, basically, because now if you want to become an owner of a company, you have to go to the stock exchange, which is centralized. And it's for companies almost impossible to get a listing on those exchanges nowadays, and they don't have that much capital needed. So it is. We just see that this is necessary, and so tokenization is not just something that is modern and cool and whatever. No, it's a necessity. And especially what we see now with the energy prices skyrocketing, suddenly everybody says, oh, I want to put solar cells on my roof, but yet what does that mean if the centralized authority says, I don't want your electricity? Yeah. So you need to organize it locally. So local economies become extremely important, I guess. And
from a philosophical point of view, I think that's what's happening in our culture as well, that we actually realize that we've centralized a lot of things which are not meant to be centralized, or at least we've entered the limitations of the centralization.
I think, and this transition, oil, you can only find oil in certain places. Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela, Russia, Holland, we're lucky. But sun is everywhere. Wind is everywhere. Well, let's say almost everywhere. Yeah. So why should you centralize that? You know, why not decentralize it?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I strongly believe in that. You know, food, all the primary things that we need. Those are the ones that we're going to disrupt first, I guess. Yeah. Housing. Why not own a block of houses with a group of people? Why not own a whole flat with everybody together? Yeah, and so all these kind of things are extremely useful. Well, ready to disrupt with tokenization of assets, basically.
Yeah, and I think from a legal perspective, will that really change? I don't think so. I think.
No, I think what is needed is people need to understand how it works a little bit better. My eye-opener was that most entrepreneurs have no idea how their company is set up or what's in their deed of incorporation.
No, exactly. They only focused on their day-to-day business and their strategy. And
they start a business and they say to their accountant, please, can you do the legal stuff? Yeah. So the accountant is going to talk to you and to the notary to set it up, and he says, tell me when I have to sign. Yeah. And he gets this, oh yeah, okay, that's a lot of paper, but is it okay, guys? Yeah, I will sign here. And then that has to change a little bit, I guess. Because if you're going to do tokenization, there's more responsibility for you as an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Especially you're getting venture capital actually from a lot of people that want to invest in your company. So you have to know how that works.
Exactly. And that is... So the education part.
And that's what Liqwith does, right? No, you don't. Just kidding.
No. But that's why these webinars are so important. Yeah. That we have to tell this to people. Yeah. That read into it. Yeah. Or this kind of webinars are very, very important. And I think we should. I'm even thinking with Liqwith to go deeper into the various forms like a BV and a co-op and and we should actually.
If you like, put your thumbs up.
No, but I think it's important that we tell them what kind of articles that are important and what does those articles mean for the investors? You know, how are those investors protected, for example, or how can you protect them in a better way? Yeah. So that everybody knows. Everybody's always happy when things go right. Yeah. But it's when it goes wrong. How can you sell your shares? Yeah. What does it mean that somebody else sells? Can you sell your shares to your neighbor? Yes or no? All these kind of questions are very, very important. Again, on Liqwith, you will see a Liqwith readiness check. Please do it because that is already quite helpful. You get questions.
Yeah, it's really practical.
It's really practical, and it helps us to help you to understand what needs to be done. Yeah. I guess. Okay. Then we had some questions. You know, when when we organized the webinar, there were some questions coming, and I think, let's see if there are some coming from the internet. I think yes. Let me see. Then we got somebody from Nigeria, and the question was, can Liqwith support issuance on an OTC exchange in Nigeria? No, that's an
interesting question.
It's an interesting question. So basically, look, if I look at the technology of Liqwith, we just say, okay, we have a system where we can manage tokens, in a compliant way. Yeah. We don't know what a token represents. It can represent a company. Yeah. It can represent a part of a building. That's all the legal part. That has nothing to do with the tokenization. So it depends on the local legislation whether it's allowed to have that asset represented as a token. So we don't know. It's something that you have to look into in Nigeria itself. Exactly. Look at the legislation there, whether or not it is possible. If it's possible, I think we can support it with the technology that we have.
Exactly. I think that's a correct answer.
Yeah.
It's not because it's a Netherlands company that you would certainly have Netherlands law, but it's really the law of the country that you are acting in as a company itself.
Yeah. We get another question. It's like, what does it cost to set up a STAK, or Stichting Administratiekantoor, which is a foundation above a limited company? So let's say you set up a limited company together with this foundation, and what are the costs? And I always say it's very simple. You need
cost vary. It really is
between 3,000 to 8,000, I guess.
Setting up the structure, yes, but I mean just setting up a simple limited company with nothing in it. If you look on the internet, you get prices from, let's say, 300 to 2,000 euros. So,
but your deeds of association have to be.
Yeah, but you don't have anything yet. So what we do is we customize that. We make it so to fit actually the technical structure that is required. Yeah. So eventually.
Yeah, and then it's just at the end of the day, it's the time of the lawyers. Yeah.
It depends on how many questions you ask.
And how many questions you ask, and how difficult the task is, and how alien the question is. You know?
Exactly.
If it has never been done before, it will cost a lot more than when it's something that you do every day, I guess.
But I think the numbers that you were mentioning are quite correct. I think that's the ballpark that you figure that you have to think about. Yeah, it's not millions. It's
no.
Really below 10,000 euros that you already get a lot of corporate structures that are available to you.
I got another one. It says, I'm a recent graduate, wrote my bachelor thesis on blockchain legislation. What's the percentage number of firms in the Netherlands, Europe that uses blockchain? Well, if I say 0.001%, I'm probably...
it's a blue ocean.
It's a blue ocean. There is... Everybody is interested when you talk about it. Everybody is like in a little bit of unbelief.
It's like high school, right? Everybody talks about it, but no one does it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's, again, it is for a lot of people very difficult to say, but what happens if I have 2,000 shareholders? Well, you have to act like a stock listed company. It means that you have to inform your shareholders, that you have shareholders meetings, that you have to send them information. Yeah. But if you organize that all digitally, it's not too much work, but you have to do it. I mean, that's the flip side of it.
Yeah.
And they really, but what happens? Can I still do what I want? Well, in a way, if you have the majority of the shares, probably yes. But if you do malicious stuff in your company, you don't tell your shareholders, that's not such a good idea. But so people have to come to terms with this new reality, basically.
I think so. I think
it's a psychology thing.
It is psychology, yeah.
Even I know, because with Bilex we have now like 200 shareholders, I guess, and it's a thing, If every shareholder asks you one question a year, then 2/3 of the year you're answering shareholders' questions. Yeah. And so you have to keep that in mind. But I would say it's blue ocean answering this question.
Yeah.
And,
I agree.
Yeah. Kijken. Well, I get another question about paying dividends, and we touched upon it already. Yeah, it would be nice to pay dividends also on the blockchain, because that makes life extremely easy. Yeah. So we need a stable coin for that is issued on one of the blockchains that, basically if it's an EVM based system, and they're talking about Ethereum, on Polygon or Fuse. It's all Ethereum formatted wallet. So that means that we can actually pay the dividend in Ethereum, although we are on the Fuse blockchain, because the wallet structure is the same.
Yeah.
Again, you have to explain how to do it, but in essence, it's possible. And let's hope, because I'm involved a little bit in this idea of stable coins. What it will be? Will it be the central bank digital currency in the future? Will it be the classical stable coins that we know now, or will there be each bank can issue their stable coins and then they can charge interest on those stable coins? It's a very difficult thing, and nobody.
It's also a very political thing.
It's very political. Yeah. It's but yes, having a good stable coin system is helpful for what we do. Yeah. When we talk about issuing dividend. Then we get one. What if you're operating in the metaverse? So tokenized shared digital assets with earning potential from participating with them. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have a token that represents a digital asset. For example, music rights.
Yeah.
It's music. Yeah, it's digital nowadays. Yeah, it's not physical. It means if you sell that or you own it, it's like you own an asset, basically. And who is selling you that asset? And it's a component that you have to tell the tax authorities that you have it. Maybe you pay taxes on it. I don't know. So it doesn't matter whether it's in the metaverse, yes or no. I mean, if you have assets in the metaverse, is it then a utility or is it a real asset?
Yeah, that's something that you can debate on, because maybe it's an asset reference token in some kind of way. Yeah. Because it represents a certain value. I know in 2012 our High Court actually said that stealing a sword in World of Warcraft is actually theft.
The sword of Zelda or something like that, yeah?
Exactly.
It was theft.
So eventually I think also a Gucci bag in the metaverse will be something, actually an asset referenced object, which represents a certain value.
Yeah. So it's a good one. I mean, I would say that depends.
But those are going to be complications in light of MiCAR, and also for like these kind of crazy ventures. I always call them like kickstart your venture. But if you have a well-established company and you want to issue your shares in a fashionable way that actually investors take you very serious, I think you should just start with the simplest form, as Liqwith actually provides that technology to also make sure. And then there's this question from someone else saying, we're mapping our progress on a storyboard and we want to know where our risks are. Then you know for sure that you are compliant. And I think that's essential, that you actually know for yourself, but also the investors that partake are also sincere. And you know for sure that you are compliant towards those investors as well. I think that's essential, and that's what I love about what you did with the company, Herman, is that you actually took all the legal advice and you set that on into the technical solutions that you provide.
Yeah, I mean,
and that makes life much easier for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And then, at the end of the day, if you're not sure whether you are selling an equity or an asset, I'll give you this one. Any regulator will say, if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it flies like a duck, it's probably a duck. That's how you have to look at it. If you know yourself deep in your heart whether or not it's an asset that you can pay dividend on it, whether it's digital or not, you know that when people hold it, it has value, and when they sell it, the value can go up or go down, and they can maybe get some dividend out of it. Doesn't matter what it is, but be sure that a regulator will say that it is something that you can sell people. If it's not regulated, people can lose money on it. That was happened with the ICO, with the FTX token, the Cell token, the Binance token, whatever.
But it's eventually it's nothing new under the sun. I think. I mean, if everybody goes to the bank now and tries to get their euros, we have the same problem with the euro.
Yeah, it's also a scam.
Yeah. Well, that's just a bank run. It's just an ordinary bank run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think that was the last question, so to see. Let me say. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, Benjamin.
Well, thank you for having me here.
No, thank you for being here. Yeah, I hope you liked it. Well, you can still ask us questions. We will answer them after the webinar. But for now, I hope you will join us in the next webinar, and probably we will go a little bit deeper into the, not so much legal requirements, but in the technical details on what should be in the deed of incorporation, and stuff that you really have to look at when you are ready to tokenize your company.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Maybe you have heard of tokenization of assets, but do you know what it really is? Do you know how tokenized assets compares to cryptocurrencies? Can you tell the difference? All these questions and many more will be answered in this short video. Let's start with the fact that asset tokenization is not directly related to the cryptocurrency market. Many people confuse tokenized assets with cryptocurrencies. This is, of course, totally false. What is really being used when tokenizing assets is distributing ledger technology, DLT, or blockchain technology. It is thanks to this technology and the technology of smart contracts that the concept of asset tokenization has become possible. Another profound difference is the fact that tokenization is the ability to display a real asset on the blockchain. Real, not virtual. The value of a tokenized asset cannot be less than its real value. For example, art tokens of a valuable painting will not be cheaper than the painting itself. It is actually rather the opposite. Due to the fractional ownership of such a painting and the promise of free secondary trading, the total value of the tokenized painting can increase by 10 to 25%. Cryptocurrency creation is often perceived as a technical process that just needs to be implemented. With tokenized asset creation, however, we also have to implement legal and operational processes. The issuer cannot just create a token on the blockchain and imagine that this is a tokenized business. The complex process of legal justification and linking an asset to a smart contract is an integral part of the legalization of tokens. Without this legal binding, tokenization is just a scam. The last and perhaps most complex part of the process is the initial sale of a tokenized asset. Securities specialists are well aware of the regulations and restrictions that are introduced by regulators to protect investors in their respective countries. However, investors who have dealt exclusively with cryptocurrencies are not aware of these regulations and somehow think that those rules do not apply to them. That is why we at Liqwith believe in tokenization of assets and not in inflating crypto bubbles, which are backed solely by the assurances of the project's founders, many of which are not even able to pass a simple KYC, let alone be responsible for the funds of their investors. The 2022 bankruptcy of a series of crypto lenders and exchanges demonstrated not just a negligent attitude towards finance, but rather the complete absence of any kind of decent management or understanding of existing rules and regulations. Without being fortune tellers, one can notice a clear trend towards the formation of regulatory rules for the cryptocurrency market. Understanding all these factors, Liqwith continues to develop products and services directly related to compliant tokenization and the legal circulation of digital assets. We are pioneers in the industry, and we are happy to share our knowledge with you. Want to know more? Visit us at www.liqwith.io or drop us an email via welcome@liqwith.io. Liqwith, your innovator in finance.